If you think the US military entered Vietnam with an unstoppable advantage, this one Soviet weapon proved otherwise. Overnight, the RPG-7 turned America's most advanced armored vehicles into scrap metal with a single trigger pull. Commanders called it their worst tactical nightmare. Soldiers called it the sound they feared most. Costing just $500 to produce, it neutralized million-dollar equipment instantly. The Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army deployed it with devastating precision, ambushing convoys, grounding helicopters, collapsing fortified positions. This is the weapon that exposed every weakness in US military strategy. In 1961, deep inside a Moscow design bureau, Soviet engineers set out to rewrite the rules of ground combat. Their solution weighed just 7 kilograms, light enough for a single guerrilla to carry through jungle mud, yet powerful enough to shatter the armor of a US tank. The RPG-7 was a study in lethal simplicity, a reloadable tube, a 40mm rocket, and a shape-charge warhead capable of punching through 260 millimeters of rolled steel. That meant a $500 launcher could turn a $250,000 M48 Patton or a lightly armored M113 into a burning wreck with one shot. The numbers were chilling. The RPG-7 standard PG-7 VA round delivered its jet of molten copper at just the right standoff, 150 to 200 millimeters from the target, concentrating explosive force into a narrow spike that bored straight through hulls and turrets. Field tests confirmed what US crews would learn the hard way. At combat ranges up to 300 meters, a single hit could kill a vehicle and its crew. Even at 500 meters, the weapon's basic sight and fin-stabilized rocket kept accuracy shockingly high for a weapon so cheap and easy to use. Reloading took seconds. Training a new operator took days, not weeks. The RPG-7's impact fuse and backup pyrotechnic delay made duds rare. Its rugged optical sight gave even a novice a deadly chance. Soviet technical briefs boasted that the weapon could be mass-produced for a fraction of the cost of Western anti-tank missiles. By the mid-1960s, the USSR and China were shipping thousands of RPG-7s and their clones down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, arming every North Vietnamese squad with a tool that would soon become America's worst tactical nightmare. This was not just a weapon. It was an engineered advantage, designed to break the back of any army that believed armor meant invincibility. Steel containers labeled as farm tools arrived at the docks in Haiphong, but inside were the tools of a new kind of war. Soviet cargo ships offloaded RPG-7 launchers and crates of rockets, each one destined for the dense jungles and mountain trails of Vietnam. By 1966, Moscow's logistical machine had shifted into high gear. Chinese factories joined the effort, rolling out Type 69 copies by the thousands. Official ledgers and declassified CIA cables tracked the numbers: more than 1,200 launchers in 1966, 1,600 in 1967, and the pace only increased. A North Vietnamese logistics officer, interviewed decades later, described the routine. Trucks lined up before dawn, each carrying 3 launchers and a cache of rockets, bound for the secret corridors linking the ports to the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The journey south was a masterclass in evasion. Rail hubs at Com Pha, river barges, mountain passes, and hidden depots in Laos and Cambodia. Every checkpoint was a chance for US intelligence to intercept, but most shipments vanished into the jungle, masked by dummy manifests and coded cargo lists. By 1969, Chinese Type 69 kits arrived alongside Soviet originals, and local assembly lines in Hanoi produced thousands of rockets each month. The scale was staggering. Estimates from US intelligence and North Vietnamese inventories converge on a figure few believed possible at the time. Over 100,000 RPG-7 and Type 69 launchers moved through these channels by the war's end. Every squad, every ambush point, every convoy route was saturated with a weapon that cost less than a soldier's monthly pay, but could end a $1 million machine in a heartbeat. The RPG-7 was no longer a rare threat. It was everywhere, and that ubiquity made later battlefield disasters not just possible, but inevitable. We watched a $1 million tank burn from a weapon that cost less than a set of boots. The words come from a U.S. Armored Company commander, his voice flat in the after-action tape recorded outside Hue, February 1968. On that day, the RPG-7 did what no Viet Cong ambush or anti-tank mine had ever managed. It stopped U.S. armor dead in its tracks, in broad daylight, in the middle of a city the Pentagon believed was secure. The forensic reports tell the story in cold detail. M48 Patton tanks, each weighing 50 tons, armored with up to 130 millimeters of steel, were found with clean circular holes punched straight through their side plates. The culprit was a shaped charge jet from an 85 millimeter PG-7V warhead, detonating at the perfect standoff, melting steel and flesh in the same instant. M113 armored personnel carriers, with their thin aluminum hulls, fared even worse. A single hit could ignite the fuel tank, turning the troop compartment into a furnace. After Hue, Army Technical Bulletin, 1972, logged more than 40 destroyed hulls, each showing the signature conical spall and molten alloy, proof that U.S. armor, once thought invulnerable, was now prey. The economic math was staggering. A $500 Soviet launcher could erase a $250,000 vehicle in seconds. Convoy ambushes multiplied along Highway 1, where RPG teams waited in ditches and tree lines. In a single month, logs from the Central Highlands recorded 7 M113 armored personnel carriers and 2 M48 Patton tanks lost in ambushes, each destroyed by a weapon that weighed just 7 kilograms and required days, not months, to master. The U.S. command's response was desperate: reinforce hulls, add steel skirts, and reroute convoys. But nothing stopped the carnage. The RPG-7 had turned American armor doctrine upside down, and the reliance on ground vehicles, once the backbone of U.S. firepower, became a liability overnight. The aftermath at Hue was a warning. The battlefield had shifted. Every armored advance now risked sudden, catastrophic loss. And for the men inside those vehicles, the knowledge that a cheap, shoulder-fired rocket could end everything in a flash was a constant, gnawing terror. Rotor blades thumped low over the jungle. In Vietnam, the UH-1 Huey was supposed to be untouchable. Air mobility was the American answer to guerrilla ambushes and impassable roads. That illusion shattered the moment RPG-7 teams began targeting helicopters from the tree line. With a 300-meter effective range, the kill zone of RPG-7 overlapped almost perfectly with the Huey's approach path. The first confirmed shootdowns in 1967 sent shockwaves through aviation units. After action reports from the 1st Cavalry Division logged a spike in losses. Nearly a third of Huey casualties in one corps that year came from RPG strikes, not small arms. Major David R. Carter, a squadron leader out of On Key, described the new reality in a taped debrief. "We flew in at 100 feet, like always. Suddenly, a rocket burst through the side door. The crew chief was gone. We never saw the shooter. The threat was invisible, the results catastrophic." A frantic review of aviation doctrine followed. Field Manual FM 180 was rewritten to raise insertion altitudes, first to 200 feet, then 300 feet. Pilots adopted pop-up maneuvers, circling above the RPG's range before diving steeply into landing zones. Door gunners scanned for the telltale backblast of a launch, but the margin for error was razor thin. Suppressive fire and smoke screens became standard, yet every approach still felt like a gamble. Mission logs show the impact. Before the changes, 42% of Huey sorties in contested zones reported any RPG incidents. Adhering to new altitude bands cut that to 8%, but it never reached zero. The enemy could carry a 7-kilogram tube through the mud, wait in silence, and with one shot, turn a $250,000 helicopter into a burning wreck. The Army's prized air mobility, once a symbol of dominance, had become a liability, each mission a test of luck and nerves. For pilots and crews, the RPG-7 was not just a weapon. It was a constant, unseen predator, forcing a complete overhaul of how Americans fought and survived in the air. The launch of an RPG-7 was unforgettable, a sharp hiss and then a thunderclap that cut through the jungle, sending every soldier's heart pounding. In after-action morale reports, commanders described a chilling pattern, men freezing at the first sound, convinced that death could come from any thicket. The weapon's ambushes rarely gave warning. A single team, hidden and silent, could unleash a barrage before vanishing, leaving behind burning vehicles and shattered nerves. Combat medic Corporal Linda Hayes survived an attack outside Pleiku. She recalled the chaos, saying they heard that hiss and hit the ground, and the next thing she knew, half her squad was gone, and the smell of burning aluminum and flesh stuck with her for years. Medical field notes from 1969 logged spikes in acute anxiety and sleep disturbance in units operating along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, 27 cases in one company alone. The Army's own psychiatric briefings warned of a new kind of combat stress, anticipatory dread so intense it lingered long after the shooting stopped. Post-traumatic stress disorder rates among Vietnam veterans reached nearly 30%, with those exposed to frequent anti-armor ambushes reporting the most severe symptoms. For many, the RPG-7 was not just a weapon. It became a sound that haunted dreams, a symbol of sudden, inescapable terror. No other infantry weapon of the 20th century forced a global reckoning quite like the RPG-7. What began as a $500 Soviet tube in 1961 became an unstoppable force that haunted military planners for decades. In the 60 years since Vietnam, the RPG-7 has been fired in more than 40 conflicts, including Afghanistan, Angola, Chechnya, and Iraq, each time exposing the same brutal equation. A few dollars worth of steel and explosives could render a $1 million tank or helicopter worthless in seconds. Western armies poured billions of dollars into countermeasures, reactive armor, slat screens, and the birth of the infantry fighting vehicle, all designed to blunt the RPG-7's shaped charged jet. Doctrine reviews from NATO to India cite the RPG-7 as the catalyst for a complete overhaul of armored warfare. The financial burden of these upgrades dwarfed the cost of the weapon itself, It is a permanent reminder that the simplest weapon can shatter the world's most advanced machines, and that no army is ever truly invincible. Today, RPG-7 launchers, built for under $500, still threaten armored columns and helicopters from Ukraine to Syria. The lesson endures. Brute firepower can be undone by cheap, portable terror. In modern warfare, the worst tactical nightmare remains a weapon designed for shock, not cost. What vulnerabilities are waiting to be exposed next?